In a time long, long ago, the world was a very different place. It had become filled with people who did not love God or care about being good. They were unkind to each other and their hearts were full of bad thoughts. This made God very sad. He looked down at the beautiful world he had made and saw that it was spoiled by all the wickedness. God felt sorry that he had made people because they had forgotten all about him and his ways. It was a dark and unhappy time on the earth, and it seemed like all the goodness had been lost forever. But in this world of darkness there was one man who was different. His name was Noah. Noah was a good man who loved God with all his heart. He tried his best to live a good life and to do what was right. He talked to God and listened to him when he spoke. Noah walked with God every day like a good friend. While everyone else was busy with their own selfish ways, Noah stood out. He was a bright light in a world that had grown very dim. God saw Noah, and he was pleased with him because Noah's heart was pure and he was faithful. God saw all the bad things happening on the earth and decided he had to wash the world clean. It was a very hard decision for God to make, but the world had become too full of hate and anger. He planned to send a great flood, a huge amount of water that would cover everything. This flood would wash away all the wickedness from the land, but God did not want to destroy everything. He wanted to save the good man Noah and his family. He also wanted to save all the animals so that the world could start over again, fresh and new. So God spoke to Noah and shared his plan. He told Noah, "I am going to bring a great flood of water upon the earth to destroy all life under the heavens." This must have been a very frightening thing for Noah to hear, but God promised to keep him safe. He told Noah that he was chosen for a very special job. God was going to make a special promise, a covenant with Noah. This promise was a sign of God's love and protection. Noah listened carefully to every word God said, trusting that God had a good reason for this terrible flood and a plan to bring them all through it safely. God gave Noah very clear instructions. He told him to build a giant boat, which was called an ark. This was not just any boat, it had to be huge, bigger than any boat ever seen before. God told Noah exactly how to build it. He said to use strong gopher wood and to cover it inside and out with tar to make it waterproof. The ark needed to be very long, very wide and very tall, with 3 different levels or decks inside. It needed a roof to keep the rain out and a single door on its side. These were very specific plans for a very important project. Noah did exactly what God told him to do. He did not ask questions or complain that the job was too big. He simply obeyed. Noah and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, got to work. They went to the forest and chopped down the big gopher trees. They sawed the wood into long planks and began to build the frame of the giant ark. People who saw them probably laughed. They could not understand why Noah was building such a massive boat on dry land, far from any sea, but Noah did not listen to them. He only listened to God's voice. After giving instructions for the ark, God told Noah about the next important task. He was to gather animals. God wanted to save every kind of creature that lived on the earth. Noah was told to bring 2 of every kind of animal, a male and a female, into the ark. This included all the big animals, like elephants and giraffes, and all the small ones, like rabbits and mice. He also needed to bring 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal and every kind of bird. It was a huge job to gather so many creatures from all over the world. As the ark was being finished, a long line of animals began to appear. They came from the forests, the jungles, and the plains. 2 by 2, they walked peacefully toward the giant wooden boat. The big lions walked calmly next to the gentle lambs. The tall giraffes lowered their heads to enter the door. Birds of every color flew down and went inside. Noah and his family guided them all into their places on the different decks of the ark. They also brought lots of food for everyone, enough to last for a very long time, just as God had commanded. When the ark was finally finished and all the animals were safely inside, God told Noah that it was time. "Go into the ark, you and your whole family," God said, "because I have found you righteous in this generation." Noah, his wife, his 3 sons and their wives all walked up the ramp and through the single door into the ark. After the last person was inside, God himself shut the door from the outside. They were all sealed safely inside the giant boat. For 7 days they waited inside the quiet ark, trusting in God's promise to protect them from the storm that was coming. Then the rain began. It was not a normal rain. Water started to pour from the sky, and it also burst up from under the ground. The Bible says the fountains of the great deep broke open and the windows of heaven were opened. It rained harder and harder for 40 days and 40 nights without stopping. The water rose quickly, covering the fields and the hills. Soon the water was so high that it lifted the huge ark, and the great boat began to float. It floated high above the ground, carrying its precious cargo of life safely above the rising floodwaters. The water kept rising until it covered everything on earth. Even the tallest mountains were completely underwater. Every living thing that was left on the dry land was washed away by the great flood. But inside the ark, Noah and his family and all the animals were safe and dry. They floated on the endless ocean for many, many months. It must have been a long and difficult time waiting inside the dark ark, with only the sounds of the animals and the water outside. But Noah continued to trust in God's plan and his promise to bring them to a new clean world. After a long time, God remembered Noah and everyone with him in the ark. He sent a wind to blow over the earth, and the waters began to go down. The rain had stopped long ago, and now the flood slowly started to disappear. One day, the ark came to rest on the top of a mountain called Ararat. Noah and his family had been inside the ark for over a year. Even though they had landed, they still had to wait for the water to go down enough for them to leave the ark. The long, dark journey was almost over. Noah waited patiently inside the ark. To see if the earth was dry, he sent out a bird. First, he sent out a raven, which flew back and forth. Then he sent out a dove, but it came back because it could not find a place to land. A week later, he sent the dove out again. This time it returned in the evening with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. This was wonderful news. It was a sign that the water was going down and that new plants were beginning to grow. Noah knew that their time in the ark would soon come to an end. Finally, after waiting a little longer, God spoke to Noah again. "Come out of the ark," God said. "You and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you." Noah opened the great door of the ark. He, his family, and all the animals came out onto the dry ground. They stepped out into a fresh, clean world. The sun was shining, the air was clean, and everything was new. It was the start of a new beginning for the whole world, a chance to live in a way that pleased God. The first thing Noah did when he left the ark was to build an altar. He wanted to thank God for keeping them safe through the terrible flood. He gave a special offering to show his love and gratitude. God was pleased with Noah's thankful heart. He made a very important promise to Noah and to all people and animals forever. God promised that he would never again destroy the whole earth with a flood. He promised that as long as the earth exists, there will always be seasons for planting and harvesting, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. As a sign of this special promise, God put a beautiful rainbow in the clouds. He said, "I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my promise." So now every time we see a rainbow arching across the sky after a storm, we can remember God's promise. It is a timeless symbol of hope, new beginnings, and God's faithful love for the world he created.